Why? Hello and welcome everybody. Also, good morning. So today I wanted to go ahead and update you guys with day 3 on the SSF Righteous Fire Elementalist. Honestly, it's got some pros, it's got some cons. I thought it was just going to be a lot of cons, but I have to say, I was definitely a little incorrect. The progress is not nearly as bad as I thought. So let's start talking about some highlights of the character. That AoE. So this AoE on the character, we currently have about 124% AoE. That is with 0 AoE from the tree. It is all from Flame Golem scaling and Heart of Destruction. And this can actually go up even higher. I'm currently running like a Primordial Bond, for example. This is one of the builds where Spiritual Aid actually not only benefits you, but benefits the minions. Not in the form of like the golems doing damage, just because you get a little bit of minion life across the way, you get some minion regeneration, etc. Primordial Bond here is really nice because it gives you golem effect. But anyway, let's go ahead and talk about the character a little bit. So originally, when I first started playing this character, I thought it was going to like kind of plummet immediately in red maps. I thought the defenses were going to be really bad, and it's just not going to feel good. It's actually not the case. Elementalist is a lot more damage, but it is more buttons. Primarily, it is one extra button, and that's Wave of Conviction. So when you play Righteous Fire Chieftain, your goal when you're mapping is to secure your Ignite Proliferation, right? Kind of like if you see on my gloves here, ignites you, inflict spread to other enemies. Elementalist would technically want this, and you would want Fire Exposure, because if you don't have Fire Exposure on hit, or if you have a Master of Fire cluster, which were 600 alts in deep, have not hit it, then you have to basically keep tapping your Wave of Conviction while you map, and it's just not the same playstyle as like the RF build that I want to play, right? So we're going to jump in this Phantasmagoria. It's a T16 map. I'm going to show you guys how the character clears. And do note that this character is still on life res gear. I do have a 6-link that I got lucky with, but again, we're just on standard life res gear. We don't have an Elder Helm yet. We don't have anything fancy on the character. So yeah, let's get started. Getting a fire exposure on hit, or getting... Actually, wait, my Merc is not supposed to be here. Let's get the Merc out. Reserve. Getting a fire exposure on hit would make it so I don't have to tap this Wave of Conviction. I could just Frost Blink through my enemies, and that would kind of remove a button press. Now, before people say something, it's not that I don't like pressing buttons, right? It's that it makes the build so much cleaner when you don't have to walk up to a mob and press like Wave of Conviction and Flammability and then throw the Fire Trap, right? Like you want to boost up your clear. So part of boosting up your character's clear is automating things, right? That's one of the really nice things about it. The damage is actually really solid on the character for RF, to be completely honest with you. Like even like rare mobs, a lot of rare mobs you can kill once they're hit with once they get hit with exposure and the flammability, which again, if we had exposure on hit or AoE, we would just cast the curse and then they would die, right? So overall, really happy with how the character climbed through maps. We even did like Eater and Exarch. Honestly, Eater and Exarch were not even really a problem. Exarch was a little annoying because of all the golems creating walls and like, AoE exploding all of the balls during the phase. But honestly, the damage was probably... maybe honestly close to double what Chieftain would have at that time. The damage is really good, and the primary reason is three things. Number one, Mastermind of Discord, making you have just giga minus res on every target. Heart of Destruction, so when you're fighting unique mobs, you get Convergence, dealing more Ellie. And then Liege of Primordial, giving you the crazy Golem scaling. You gotta remember that the Flame Golem gives you increased damage in AoE, the Chaos Golem gives you Chaos Res and Dot Multi, and then this one is just quality of life. It gives you faster shield charge. Later on, this would be swapped with a Stone Golem of Safeguarding so you can get more tanky. And then this Golem gives you a bunch of life regen, along with some defenses. So, it's all good and fun, but let's talk about some other cons I have with the character. One of the biggest problems RF has is as you want to scale into harder content, so harder content, let's talk about that. Delirium T16 or heavier Delirium T16, right? Or maybe the map mods, right? Like maybe you're sick of rolling over so many map mods, because as Ellie, I actually do feel that it's more map mod restricted. An example of this is I don't want to run maps with mobs have Ellie res because it feels really bad to clear on a clear speed build, right? And I also don't want to run a map with you cannot inflict exposure, because that's basically the same thing as Ellie res, and I don't really have the damage to make those maps feel good, right? So it definitely has it's a bit more punishing on the map mods if you want the build to feel good. However, I guess actually that's not a however, there's another downside. At this point in the game, my Chieftain RF would be blasting maps, and the primary reason it would be blasting is because of the Hinokora explosion. Unfortunately, on Elementalist, we don't have anything to really mimic that. Now, there are a few solutions here, and I'll talk about the few solutions. So solution number one could be farming an obliteration wand, and the obliteration will basically make it so that when we kill mobs, we have a chance to trigger and explode, and then I'd have to be a little more squishy, but we drop Bastion of Elements for Shaper of Flames, and I already have the Ignite Prolif here, so that would probably be pretty good, but then I would need a weapon swap for single target, because I would be losing an entire weapon for single target, right? Another option that's not so as invasive would be like just gearing up a mercenary for Assonance Gentle Touch. Not necessarily the same thing. I could also wear Assonance Gentle Touch, but then I'm sacrificing my glove slot, and I don't really want to do that. So that's like another issue. The other problem with Assonance is it's generating a temporal chains on hit, and I'd have to override that with my flammability. So it is a nice option, but it's not the solution I want, right? And to be fair, I've used these in previous RF builds before we played Chieftain. This is nothing new to me, right? The next goal, which I think is the better goal, would actually be farming Maven to get Legacy of Fury. Legacy of Fury will give the AoE Scorch, which is very good. It's kind of like a, you know, a similar themed exposure. The Scorch is going to be really, really nice. And the reason it's going to be so nice is because it's going to minus everyone's res, right? So that Scorch stacks with the exposure. And then because we have such obnoxious AoE scaling, the on-kill proc would actually be very, very nice. Downside of this, we lose our boots, and we have to farm Maven so that we can actually get those boots, right? So those are kind of like some of the issues here. Chieftain, again, gets all of this stuff kind of set up naturally, but I do think for SSF, Elementalist is probably the better bosser, primarily because you can spend way less time on your gear, and you just have a lot more damage, right? When you're doing things like, say, Maven or Uber Elder, or even Imitation farming, I could definitely see this being the winner. Don't get me wrong, I love my Chieftain, I really do, but you can't reliably trigger explodes in that content early, right? So Ellie actually feels like, to me, it progresses way faster in the campaign. Not that Chieftain is slow, it's just the damage you get from Elementalist is very front-loaded from golem scaling, right? So that's number one. Number two, I would actually even argue that new players might even have a better time with this build, as wild as that seems. If you're in Trade League, because you get access to things like Immortal Flesh, you could buy Rise of the Phoenix, and the only reason why I say this is because the golems actually soak up so much damage on boss fights, it's not even funny. So like, say you do like your T16 maps and your character is pretty weak, and there's like a very heavy physical boss like the drop there, and I think it's Underground River. The golems just chain tank it. Like, they'll die, but then they get resummoned and then they tank it again. When you play a build without minions, you've got to tank everything yourself, and for newer players, that can actually be a bit frustrating because they don't understand why they can't tank the target, right? When you have an army of minions, they're tanking it for you, and it's such a meme archetype because I didn't think that it would scale to this level, but it actually works. Now, speaking of the golems, they definitely do die, but they don't die that often for me to really be bothered with it. Furthermore, if I had more damage and I had sources of explode, they wouldn't be dying in the first place, right? So as the clear gets better, the character, you know, overall will feel better. So overall, I am pretty happy with the character, but I think I kind of want to make a Chieftain just because I really miss the clear I would have at this current stage in the game. It would feel so much better. So I do potentially see myself re-rolling into Chieftain, but I won't bench the character. I'll probably either re-roll it into something else, or I'll revisit it after I farm, like, say, Legacy of Fury. So that's pretty much my thoughts overall. Still pretty happy with the character. Definitely could see this character being much better in Trade League, and the primary reason for Trade League is you can fix a lot of issues, / you can buy a flask called, like, Oriat's End, right? Oriat's End would give you explode without having to sacrifice anything. And this does lead me to the last topic on the Elementalist, which is it synergizes much better with mercenaries than a Chieftain. And this is more of a Chieftain problem. So what I mean by this is this mercenary, for example, has like flammability, right? I could give this mercenary elemental weakness on hit on gloves, and then I could give them +1 curse, and now they're applying flammability and elemental weakness, right? Or I myself could run one of the curses and give her dual curse, and then now our curses stack. Chieftain can't benefit from curses like that, so that's already one very easy way to pivot a mercenary into increasing your damage. Vice versa, you could give her dual curse, and then you could use punishment for tri-curse, so there's kind of interesting scenarios you can do here. Chieftain is much more watered down, where the mercenary interaction pretty much boils down to a single aura, and then everything else is on the gear, which just doesn't feel as good. You don't get as much use out of the mercenaries, right? builds that can benefit from the minus res scaling definitely can get more use out of it. But overall, like I said, I'm pretty happy. I don't regret the character. I think it will make a really nice explode character in Trade League, or if I can get some stuff set up in SSF. So that's pretty much my thoughts on it. Overall, pretty happy with the character. It progressed nicely. It had a better, Eater and XR kill than when I was on my Chieftain. I was impressed with that. The golems do really frontline a lot of damage received. So overall, pretty happy with it. Anyway, that's pretty much about it. I'll have to see what we're doing on the stream because, like I said, I don't know if I want to keep playing the character without explode. It's just, it's just hurting me. It hurts me. But anyway, I'll catch you guys on the stream. We'll be live at twitch.tv/Pohx. We'll be figuring out what we're going to do. But for now, I am out. Take care. Thank you everyone so much for watching. We're live every day at 9 o'clock Central, aside from Saturdays. We're live at 10. So basically now, and Sundays we're not live. So take care, and thanks for watching, everybody.